This is a weird one. So before I knew this person, my good friend Mike Manhop sent me this album, and I immediately liked it. It wasn't something I typically listened to. At the time I was listening to mostly like metal, like hardcore and rap. And this was a haunting kind of folk guy, and I immediately liked it. And there was a song I liked in particular called My Girl the Horse. And I grew up on a farm, kind of partial to horse things for whatever reason. And when I got that record, I spun that song in particular quite a bit. And at the time, this is many years ago, it was probably like 15, 14 years ago, I'm playing it. I'm at the farm that my parents live at. And a man, an old soldier, comes to the farm, and he asked my parents if he could ride a horse up to the top of the hill in his old uniform for a photo shoot. My parents obliged. He rides Taco up the hill. Taco is a horse we used to have. At one point, he kicked me in the chest when I was a little boy. I had a hoof print on my chest for 6 or so weeks. Anyway, this old man is in his uniform, and he rides Taco to the top of the hill. I'm walking around the farm listening to My Girl the Horse, a song I had just found out and I love a lot. The first line of that song is, "Please, sir, don't you ride on me." And then later on in the song, it says, something I'm paraphrasing now because I want to get it right, but neither of us will make it down this hill alive. Now, Taco, for whatever reason, died beneath this man at the top of this hill. And it was quite shocking that I had been listening to a song about a horse dying on a hill that whole week. So Taco died. The man's okay.
Okay.
He's probably bruised emotionally. But that to me is a weird synchronicity that would then later on begin a friendship with this next guest where we have lots of synchronicities. Super talented guy. He's one of my favorite musicians. You might have seen him on Good Morning America. He's collaborated with Bonnie Prince Billy. You can find him on Instagram. He's got books. He's got his new album, Bright Soil. His name is Christopher Mansfield, and he is of the band Fences. And let's bring him on.
Hey, how's it going? Can you hear us, Christopher? Chris?
I can hear you great.
Oh, dude.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. I just kept thinking something, Almost Heaven, West Virginia. What's Almost Heaven? That sounds like the Bardo or the waiting room where a ghost is not there.
Right.
They didn't go to heaven. So it's almost
right.
like they gave us a clue with their little song and their catchphrase. I actually have a T-shirt that says Almost Heaven, West Virginia. And now I'm never going to wear it again.
It's haunted. Did you hear the story about the song you wrote, My Girl the Horse, and how I think it killed my horse?
Yeah, I was going to apologize for Taco. Because I was actually ironically talking to someone the other day about how I didn't really like tacos, like the real ones. Like I like Taco Bell or Taco Time. I like very Caucasian tacos. Like I can't do the double like with the lengua and all that. So it might have just been my vendetta against the food, and then it psychically accidentally killed your horse named Taco. So I'm sorry.
It's all right. He was old. It was his time to go, and it's all right. But I think about that a lot when I think about you and your music, and that makes me think about another artist I love, Brian Wilson, who of the Beach Boys, for those who don't know. You know that story where he's in the studio recording his album Smile. He's doing the song Mrs. O'Leary's Cow, which is about the Chicago fire. And he's bugged out in the studio. He's got a fire hat on. They made a fire in the studio. And essentially, writing this song and recording, I think, kind of made him go a little crazy because he heard that just down the block, a building burnt down. And then he started hearing about other buildings, and he associated every fire happening with this thing that he opened up with this dark. Yeah. It's a very unhinged song for those who listen to it. It's an instrumental, but it's crazy. What do you think's going on there with music? Does music have a power to do this?
To kill horses?
I think that I was recently in New York, and there was this man I met named Joe who invented a bunch of BMX tricks when he was young, and he was talking about he's like, it wasn't me doing it, and he was like, it was this like this alchemy, like you become like a wizard. And he's like, I want to know how to play guitar. And I showed him like, like the don't chicka don't. I showed him like the Johnny Cash strum, and he called me like 2 months later, and he's like, I got it. My wife won't stop crying, and I'm like, oh no, like you tapped in. Like there is this weird, if you're getting information from a place that's not really yours, like God, I guess. It's kind of a great responsibility, and I think it can like almost, it's like like a guitar can be like a Ouija board, right?
Yeah.
So you have to be careful. You're playing with these things, and it can go good or go bad. Like you're accidentally like, oh, I sang something about someone, and it's almost like love potion number 9. I mean, you can make someone fall in love with you, then you can have a child, and the child will get old, and the child will die, or maybe someone wrote, maybe Charles Manson's father wrote Charles Manson's mother a love song, and they made Charles Manson. So there's a great power with music, because it's, it's like, think about like marches, like military marches and like the national anthem. Like music has the ability to heal the world or manipulate the world. So it's like a great responsibility.
It's funny you say that, because Brian Wilson recorded or released Good Vibrations about a month before the Mrs. O'Leary's Cow was recorded. And Good Vibrations he wrote because he asked his mom when he was younger, why are dogs barking at that person? And she said the dogs are picking up on the bad vibrations of that person. So it's like Good Vibrations.
You're trying to fix it.
Yeah. He kind of balanced it out, because Good Vibrations has that very, it like transcends. It's got such a high, people think of it as Good Vibrations, and it's happy-go-lucky. But if you actually listen to Good Vibrations, to how he wrote it at the end of Smile, it goes from Mrs. O'Leary's Cow to Blue Hawaii, and then segues into Good Vibrations, which is one of the most haunting segues, I think, in music history. It's very bizarre, but that's obviously not how it was recorded or released, because the record label wasn't so happy with Smile. But I love that stuff.
I think what was so like kind of incredible about Brian is that he seemed to sort of hide the alchemy behind like major chords and pop melodies and stuff like that, which is a very, very cool idea. Because if someone just comes out and they're like, I'm just saying evil things, and it's like, like when I listen to like, I don't know, like Burzum or like Dark Throne or like black metal, I'm like, I like it kind of, it sounds kind of fun, but I'm like, I don't buy it. But then when you hear this kind of happy song, but behind that you're like, oh, it's like they're trying to say something with like a mask on. It's like they're in a costume, and it's kind of, it's like they're undercover, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And it's
that's
more
so
effective.
good. Yeah, a lot of people think of the Beach Boys as this happy-go-lucky thing. The California Girls, Surfing USA. They're underneath, below the surface of the Beach Boys is just haunting. I mean, they were Dennis was, I think it was Dennis, friends with Charles Manson.
Yeah,
they were in that world.
Well, I think, I mean, you had told me once there was a part of a Beach Boys song that you cried every time. And now I do as well.
Really?
And it's just when he says, surfs up on a tidal wave, and I think of kind of like this, but like it's like sarcastic, like surfs up, like know, but it's like it's like yeah, like life is really scary. Surfs up. It's like
I don't think I can listen to the Beach Boys the same way anymore.
I hope everyone has a different view of the Beach Boys now, because they're so, I think they're underrated. As popular as they are, no one's interpreting them as this kind of very haunting soundtrack to the fall of America during the 60s. We're going to be happy, and we're the best at it. And Brian Wilson is a madman, genius, who's seeing all these vocal melodies. He thinks he's actually receiving God's voice through him, is what he said. Music is God's voice, and that's what all the harmonies are. But that's why I include them in a paranormal podcast, because to me they are the soundtrack to paranoia and paranormal, and but it's masked by this lovely melody, all these lovely melodies.
Masked by normal.
Right,
You know?
right. Which,
Yeah,
you know, and that's
I agree with you. I can't. Yeah, the smile demos. I can't do it. Like if I have to like really choose the times I can listen to it, because it makes me kind of go crazy. And I've sat with many women showing that to them, and I'll go on some rant, and they're like, I don't hear it. I'm like, listen harder, like, you know, and they're just thinking,
yeah,
you know, you need your well-trained, you know.
So I want to move on in a minute, but I should say real quick before we move on, I want to talk about Joshua Tree and your own paranormal encounters, if you have any. But
Sure.
yeah, so Smile, Christopher is referencing the Smile sessions, and you can actually, if you're listening to that you're hearing a man lose his mind. There's sessions in that where Brian Wilson is pretending he's trapped inside of a piano. He actually, in fact, does lose his mind, according to his physician, or I would call him his handler. His handler takes over Brian's whole life. Brian gets addicted to like drugs, lots of weird drugs that are trying to heal him. His therapist is trying to now write his lyrics, and Brian loses it, and you're listening to a man snap. And then the Smile sessions, the record label, when Brian brought it to them, they were like, this is insane. We don't want anything. We're going to take apart this masterpiece, I think is a masterpiece, and we're going to release it in the way we think it seems fit, because it bugs people out. But it's the most bugged out record. I think it's, to me, it's almost tied with Pet Sounds, which he wrote right before this. And then the other thing I want to say real quick, we were talking about last night, I decided to reach out to Carol Kay about Mrs. O'Leary's Cow. She's the bass player on my favorite song of all time, which is God Only Knows. Both my children were born to that song. My wife walked down the aisle to that song. It's the most beautiful song. She's on Mrs. O'Leary's Cow. She's on lots of Beach Boys songs. She was part of the Wrecking Crew. Somehow this 90-year-old lady reached back out to me. My question was, hey, do you think Brian Wilson started fires with his song? Didn't think she'd reach out. She did. She's like the straight man to me. She was like, those guys were just crazy. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. They were wearing fire hats and starting fires. She's like, I just played bass. You know, she's like, I don't think fires were started by Brian.
Okay, that's wicked hot though.
Yeah, dude, look her up. She is wicked cool. I know, you know, Christopher knows about Carol Kay, and like, she's just one of the most, you know, so
great.
talented.
I mean, she's one of those women where like, you don't even know how many things she's played on, you know, like pretty much every iconic song, you'll hear this perfect bass line, and it's just this cool lady. And she used to wear those like cat glasses, like the 60s glasses that kind of like shape, and you know, she have a dress on. She's in there with a bunch of men, just like
looks cool, sounds amazing. Cool. And she didn't get back to me about this, but this is another weird thing. If you Google her name, some of our eagle-eyed observers and watchers of the show caught this before I did. If you Google her name, it says that she died and was born on the same day. So that it says she is actually 0 years old. And I emailed her, I was like, for clarification. She's probably like, I'm not, this is bad voodoo. I'm not getting involved in that situation. Stop emailing me about Brian Wilson's fires, paranoia, and why I'm 0. Okay. But Christopher, have you had encounters with the strange and unexplained?
Yeah, I mean, do you want me to start from the beginning or current?
let's hear some. Yeah,
from the day
you can start wherever you want. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was first
my
of all,
birthday.
Born. That's
it is.
Your parents were listening to a haunting song.
I like that some of Shane's 2 favorite songs have to do with like a cow and a horse. It's all like like a farm music thing. I really like that. I'm gonna write you a song about a pig next, I think.
Please.
I remember my stepfather Wayne, his mother May. I just called her Grandma May. I didn't really know her well. She was kind of cranky, like, you know, she was, you know, when people get old, they just hate everything. Like a car drives by going like 15 and they're like, no,
yeah,
you know,
like that now.
But she had this, yeah, honestly, I'm getting there, you know, but she had this boyfriend named Grant who really liked me a lot. And, you know, he would play Scrabble with me and stuff like that. And there was one night I was in my bed and I'm dreaming, and he came to my window and knocked on it, you know, kind of like a vampire or something. And
Whoa.
I opened my window and he took my hand and he like flew me over this like cow pasture. Shane, you'll love that. And then we land and we're trying to like kind of traverse this really thick mud. He's like,
Whoa.
we gotta go. We gotta go. It's a dream. And I woke up, my mother woke me up and she's like, hey buddy, like Grant died last night. And I
Dude.
was like, oh, he came to, I don't know, was he trying to bring me with him or, you know what I mean? But that like
Whoa.
blew my mind. And that was my first one. I was probably like 11. Um,
Wow.
and I've always, because yeah, I mean, maybe coincidence, but it was like a very weird dream because I can remember feeling the feeling of pulling my legs up out of the mud and it just, it was weird.
It sounds like a metaphor. It sounds like
And
a
it's
metaphor
still
for
weird.
something, you know, like you're trudging through the mud.
Yeah.
It's like you're almost,
Almost heaven, baby.
yeah, right. Almost
Almost
heaven.
heaven.
It's the waiting room for the afterlife for sure. It's like the
Hmm.
very beginning of Dante's Inferno. It's where Dante
Yeah.
awaits Virgil is almost heaven. West Virginia is the new very beginning of the Divine Comedy. But your dream sounds like, I mean, he possibly was like saying goodbye. You had a nice relationship with them, and it's like a goodbye. Or maybe you were tapped in. Someone else might argue that you're some type of psychic abilities, and you were tapped into that part of the universe, being alerting you to this man passing away.
Right. Yeah. Which is, you know, I mean, when you admit to those things, people think that you're like delusional or you have a weird ego or something. But yeah, I had a lot. I was kind of a strange child. I mean, my name is Christopher, and I would sign my name at all my papers in school, Christ, because I couldn't go past it because I just learned to write because I was like one or something.
Right, right.
And the teachers thought I had some kind of God complex. And I'm like, no, my grandma said that I see like a lady in a blue dress floating above my bed when I wake up. Like I just was all over the place with that type of stuff as a kid. But I think that's a lot of children. I think they forget. I think you hit like puberty and you're like, you want to just think about, you know, Nirvana and like some girl named Melissa. Like you forget that you literally see ghosts and you can like
Yeah,
time travel and things like this.
We're just too
Um,
young to make
so
sense
yeah,
of
that
it.
was
yeah.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And at the end of the day, I mean, possibly that's just maybe we need to realize that childlike imagination could be sort of synonymous with psychic ability.